recording. So we're going to do a couple things today. First, we're going to talk about the population dynamics lab. We're going to talk about what the next steps are with that. It is a 3-part lab. The first part was you were supposed to have turned in. I know a lot of people emailed me. And we're going to talk about troubleshooting that, right? If you can't print, what you need to do, because this is the only paper I'm ever asking you to print, which means you need to make it happen. So incredibly tedious game, yeah, right? And we're going to talk about that. That's on purpose. So we will first talk about that, then we'll do announcements and other stuff. So that's going to be announcements. Here we go. If you don't have the population dynamics lab sheet, somehow you never saw it, which is disturbing, but I won't judge you. Open it right now, right? Make a copy of it for yourself. If you don't have data, that's okay. We're going to talk about what you can do. So I'm going to bring it up on my screen here. Share screen. Okay, so capturing the dynamic of predators and their prey, part 1. So what you needed to do before today, in theory, right, which if you didn't, we'll talk about what you can do, is fill in this data table with foxes and rabbits. Now what we had is this very complex game board. I drew this in Google Drawings. It took me forever, so I'm glad it actually turned out. The reason that you need it in color, right, is because the colors represent something. So let's talk about troubleshooting right now. If you don't have a printer, right, guess what? I don't have a printer. Occasionally I have to print things. I either come to Miwa and print them, I go to FedEx and pay 3 cents to print them, right, or I go to the library and print them. So there's many, many options here for printing that are either free and or incredibly cheap, right? I'm pretty sure it's free at the library, depending on, I think it might be free for students, or it's really cheap, like cents that you could find in your couch. So dig in your couch, get some change, go to the library, print this out. Why do you need to print it? Because we're gonna do 3 labs with this game board. So if you don't have it printed, it's gonna be hard to do. It needs to be in color. Okay, it says here 100 beans, right, of each color, black and white. They could be red and white. Any colors is fine as long as you have 2 different colors. 100 is, a lot. Doesn't need to be exactly 100. If you have 50, that should be fine. You will notice in this first part, you only really started with 15 of each, right? And then most people, their populations decreased. Most people did not need to go more than 15, right? Beads are fine winter, right? If you have 2 colors of beads, that's fine. It doesn't have to be beans, right? It could be beads. It could be, little, like whatever little things you have that are bean shaped that are 2 colors. Marbles might be hard if they're rolling, right? They need to be able to stay on the board. But if you can make that work, that's fine. It doesn't matter if it's actually beans. You just need pieces that are 2 colors that you can use. So then you follow these directions, which are very tedious, right? This is an environment. You just randomly placed your rabbits and foxes. You mixed them around, put them on any square, right? And then depending on what square they were on, you have a rule. So if the rabbit lands on a dark blue square, it gives birth to 1 rabbit. If a fox lands in the same patch of 4 squares as the rabbit, then 1 rabbit is eaten by each fox. And you actually take the rabbits out of the game permanently. And a full-bellied fox, so in other words, a fox that did eat, gives birth to a new fox. And then if a fox lands on a white square, it dies. And you take it out of the game permanently. It is confusing, right? So you're going to have to go step by step. You're going to have to go maybe slowly, check what you're doing, right? If you make a few mistakes, it's fine. Then you're going to count how many you had, and then you're going to repeat over and over. So be thankful that I only made you do it 15 times, because really, if we were doing this for real science, we would want to do it probably 100 times. So how do you put it on the table? You just add up after you go through all the steps. So once you've done steps 1 through 3, you just count how many foxes and rabbits are left, right? So after the first round, you shouldn't have 15 of each left, right? Maybe somehow none of your foxes died or gave birth, but you definitely shouldn't have 15 rabbits after the first round. So if somebody wants to link their document in the chat that we could look at data that someone did actually collect, that would be awesome. So I'll give you a few seconds to do that. But if you messed up, that's fine. You can redo this. It shouldn't take, that's okay. Let me see your data. I think yours looked okay, Destiny. If you want to pop a link to it, we'll look at it. Yeah. Okay. So some of us might need to redo our data. That's fine. Really, this initial one isn't so important as parts 2 and 3, which we'll talk about. Okay, so here's Destiny. Okay, so Destiny did start with more than 15, I'm guessing. Oh, wait, no, because your foxes could have given birth. That's right. 5 of your foxes gave birth. That makes sense. So in this situation, I don't think yours is wrong either, Elizabeth. Both of you guys have data that makes sense, right? We see the foxes and rabbits kind of hovering around the same numbers the whole time. Okay. For Destiny's, for Elizabeth's, the rabbits started out super low, but then started thriving a little bit more and ended up being equal. Yeah. So if you want to try this again, you can, now that I kind of explained the rules a little bit more. Again, part of this is following a procedure, right? Science procedures are hard to do. Jordan's popping his data in here. Yeah, Christian, yours, I think, I don't remember if yours was the one. I did tell someone, I left someone a comment that their data looked weird. Again, though, right, okay, so here, Jordan, you definitely did it right, because this is what happened when I did it. I didn't even make it to round 15. My rabbits died off, I think, around round 10. And that's exactly what's happening here with Jordan, right? His foxes reproduced a lot because they were eating well. And then rabbits went foop all the way down to 0 until there were no rabbits left. And then clearly there's no rabbits left. All the foxes eventually will die. So do we not add any more pieces? Just stick with, yeah. So at the end of the round, you just move them around and mix them up, but you don't add new pieces. So at the end of the round, you count how many you have, then you just mix them up and then randomly place them back on the squares and then go again. So you don't add new pieces each time. You only add the pieces based on the color square they're on. Okay? Yeah, it is confusing. This is going to lead into some of the stuff we're talking about, though, guys. Like, I'm glad you were struggling with this, and I'm really glad that you're asking questions and that people actually tried it before coming, right? So, Jordan, we're going to look at your data. Your data looks how it should look. Okay, so you might not get this exact situation. You might go 15 rounds and just have a few rabbits left, right? But you should see the rabbits declining in your data. And if they're not, right, it could be some kind of chance thing, but most likely they should be declining. You don't add new rabbits each time, right, unless they're on the square that allows them to reproduce, which is a dark blue square. Then they get to produce 1 rabbit. The virtual session 4 questions. Is that what we're doing today? Is that what you mean? Please don't grade mine yet. It's okay. You can resubmit. Yeah, we'll talk about that in a second, Jordan. Okay, so we have our data, right? We all looked at the procedure. A lot of us said, what the F is this, right? It's really confusing. So this is a model, a scientific model that we're looking at. So what we're really answering in this lab is, how can we model population dynamics? And we're going to talk about kind of what that means as we go through. So let's just start right now. Before we even go to the next slide, I want you guys as a little warm-up question now that we kind of talked about troubleshooting, which I have here last, but that's fine. What do you think the purpose and the function of this lab was? Based on the data that we looked at from Jordan says to see a pattern. I think her camera's just tilted, Riley. I would worry about you right now. Don't worry about what other people are doing. You should be answering the question, what is the purpose and function of this lab? To understand extinction. Now, that's an interesting point. Okay. What does the word population dynamics mean? To see the growing and declining rates in the populations of rabbits and foxes. Good. So if you had to define population dynamics, what is that? To see how reproducing works. Okay. Does anybody want to go on Google really quick and give us an official dictionary definition of what population dynamics means? Births, deaths, growth. That's nice. Suggestion there by Bella. We'll wait for that official definition. But really, what we're looking at here, guys, is the relationship. Okay, here we go. Population dynamics is the branch of life sciences that studies the size and age composition of populations as dynamical systems and the biological and environmental processes driving them. So what does that mean? It means we're going to study a population, in this case, wolves and rabbits, and we're going to look at the dynamics between them, right? Who's dying, who's surviving, who's growing, who's doing this? Are they migrating? Are they hibernating? Are they doing anything special? And then we're also going to be looking at biological and environmental processes. So in other words, is the environment causing them to die? Are they running out of food and maybe they're dying because of that? Are they doing something biological like migrating and so we only see them sometimes, right? Those would be the kind of questions that you would ask if you were doing this as a career in science. So it's kind of like natural selection. Good. So the reason we're doing this in the evolution unit is because natural selection is going to be at play here. Not only are we going to have ecosystem dynamics, predator, prey, right? We're also going to have carrying capacity. How much can the environment actually support? Not only are we going to have all that stuff, we're also going to have natural selection potentially working here, where we could model it. Now, oops, I just threw my ponytail. Riley just says death. Okay, so what is this game representing? We just talked about that. So looking at your data, which we will look at Jordan's data as a class, looking at the data, what trends do we notice? So what's happening over time? You could look at your own data. If you feel that your data is really far off and you want to look at Jordan's data for now, that's fine. This is just for discussing purposes. What is happening over time? Thank you, Destiny. Rabbits are rapidly decreasing. Yeah, 15, 10, 7, 10, 9, 3, 0. Like they were like, whoops, dead. Foxes, meanwhile, are increasing, right? Death is happening in the rabbits for sure. Foxes are increasing. So that's pretty much the main trend here. Now, do we see a relationship? Do you think they're indirectly related? Like as the foxes go up, are the rabbits going down at the same rate? Maybe, right? I see the foxes almost doubling and the rabbits going back to 0. So they're almost going at the same rate. That's something to note. Are there any outliers? And then we already have volunteers to share their data. I get ahead of myself sometimes. Are there any outliers in the data? Does anything that we see here look extreme? No, right? It actually looks like there's not really any outliers. It looks fine. An outlier would be maybe if all of a sudden you only had 6 foxes and then they jumped up to like 40, right? And you're like, whoa, what happened here? Too many foxes, for sure. So what would a graph look like for our data? Scatter plot, maybe. Well, let me ask you guys this. Based on stuff we've done before, would we want to graph the mean? Would we want to graph each point? Each point, right? If we graph the mean, it's not really going to tell us anything, right? It's going to tell us the average number of foxes that survived. Okay, but that doesn't show us any trends. So what we should see is, in your graph, you should have something like, I'm going to do foxes in lime green. Foxes increasing. Meanwhile, in pink, we'll have rabbits. Rabbits decreasing, right? So you should have something like that in your mind. If you did draw it, that's cool. I'm going to put an F so we remember that that's foxes. So this is kind of maybe what our data would look like, right? But this could be kind of messy, as you can imagine. If we wanted to really graph everyone's data, like let's say we wanted to take everyone's data and graph it, and we had a million lines all over, that could be confusing. So there are times when we could average. But regardless, we should see some kind of trend like this where foxes are increasing, rabbits are decreasing. Now, does anybody remember the term carrying capacity and what that means? How much something can carry with the trophic levels? Yep. So what is the carrying capacity in an ecosystem? Yeah, it's basically how many animals the environment can support. So we know, right, just from common sense knowledge, looking out in the world, if we had that many foxes and we had no rabbits, foxes would start dying, right? I just drew an arbitrary line here, but the carrying capacity of the environment will only support so many foxes. Because if they have no food, right, maybe they eat other things other than rabbits, but still, rabbits are going to be a huge portion of their food, right? That's going to be kind of hard because if there's all foxes and no rabbits, what's going to happen to the foxes? All foxes, no rabbits, what happens to the foxes? That's how life goes. Yeah, but what happens to them if they have no food? They die, they starve, right? They're going to die and starve. So the reason I'm mentioning this is because I think a lot of us have already kind of pointed this out. This is not a perfect model. That's going to be the point of, whoa, I just figured out how to clear all drawing. That's life-changing. We're going to critique this model and we're going to improve it. Yeah, exactly. Elizabeth's right. There will be other consequences. Vegetation will overgrow because there's no rabbits. So true. Are we seeing that in our model? No. Are plants even involved in our model? Are the rabbits' food source involved? No. Right? So that's a problem. Because if we're trying to model real life, we want it to be as close as possible to real life. So, is this game realistic? What do you guys think? I think most of us already say no. So let's identify why. What's unrealistic about this game? You could go back and look at the rules. Okay, rabbits breed like crazy. So rabbits have what, like 10 offspring at once? And in this game, they only have 1, right? That's a problem. Okay, wolves eat other stuff. Also true. Not all factors are included. So what kind of factors, though? We're going to specifically figure them out. The foxes being the alpha predator. What do you mean by that, Riley? Yeah, do foxes only eat 1 rabbit? No. Foxes eat many rabbits. Weather, right? So we're not talking about the environment here. You know, is there a weather? Is there an earthquake, right? Some kind of natural stuff going on. There are other predators of rabbits, true. Disease, oh yes, we'll add that with environment, important. Hunting, sure. Right, would wolves get hunted? Maybe. Would rabbits get hunted by humans? Probably not, but wolves might, right? I put hunter instead of hunting, sorry about that. That's what happens when you talk and type. Anything else that we think maybe is missing from making this realistic? I want you guys to think specifically about the rabbits. Are rabbits all the same color? Can rabbits hide? Right? They can. So we can even start thinking about the variations in the populations, right? Rabbits could be white or brown, maybe. Wolves even could be different colors, right? Some wolves might be smarter than others, right? So there are natural variations that exist. Think about humans, right? There's different hair, there's different skin tones, there's different size of like your nose, right? There's little variations that make you unique. Rabbits and wolves have the same exact stuff. They have variations in their population. Now, why would I be emphasizing variations? What do variations in the population lead to? Natural selection. Exactly. So natural selection is missing here, right? We're not seeing any natural selection in our game, right? We're not seeing variations in the rabbits. We're not seeing nature selecting possibly that white rabbits maybe aren't going to survive in a forest, whereas brown rabbits can kind of hide, right? It would be harder for the wolves to hunt them. So that's missing here. That is going to be a huge factor in making this game not realistic. Now, the real question is, do you think we could make a realistic model of population dynamics that represents every single one of these factors at once? Riley's optimistic. No, right? Maybe with a computer model, computer models can get close, right? Because you could program all these things in, but again, we don't really know what natural selection is going to do, right? It doesn't have a goal. It's really hard to be evolution, right, as a human, because we have, oh, well, this rabbit would probably do this, right? It's also really unpredictable. Great point by Riley. Disease, who knows if there would be disease? It's random almost when that happens, right? Maybe the wolves run out of other food and they start only eating rabbits. How would we know? So it's going to be impossible to make a completely realistic model. Now, does that mean that this model is completely useless? Of course not, right? It can still show us things. It can show us some of the relationships. We can take what we observe in a model and apply it to what we're seeing in the world. Yeah, they could have more offspring or less. Exactly, right? There's so many factors that it would be impossible to have a 100% realistic model. Now, can we make the game that we've already done better? Oh, yes, we can. So I want you to write down these 7 factors here if you haven't. And what we're going to do is we're going to do this lab 2 more times. You are going to get to change the rules in the game. So be looking at these things, thinking about which one of these things you think maybe could work in the game and how that might look. And I'm going to give you a second to write these all down because I want to make sure everyone has them. So type a 1 in the chat when you have all 7 things that are unrealistic about the game written down. Okay, so when I played this game, because I went to a professional development about this, and I thought this was a really cool lesson. Not only do we have data, we're analyzing data, we're modeling something, but making this game better, I was like, ooh, exciting, right? In fact, I chose the rabbit's offspring. I was like, this is ridiculous. Rabbits have 1 rabbit? No, they would have a lot, right? So that's what I chose personally. So hopefully we have all those things written down because they're about to be erased. Okay, so how can we make it better? There are going to be 2 more parts to this lab. Oh, Destiny's right. Would a fox give birth each time after it eats? No. So maybe it's something like if the fox survives 2 rounds, it gives birth, or something like that, right? You could change a rule about that too. So we're going to focus on part 2, and then I'll talk about part 3. So part 2 is going to be the hardest. This is going to be challenging, guys. And I'm giving it to you because it's challenging and you can handle it. Remember, it's not going to be perfect. It's a model. This is really going to challenge you to think about how could this be modeled. You're going to make only 1 modification to the game. Why do you think we're only going to change 1 thing? Riley says, I don't know. Okay. Why would we just change 1 thing and not just scrap the whole thing and start over? Yeah, we want to see how it affects our data, right? We did this originally. It's essentially like changing an independent variable here. We want to change 1 thing. Does it make our data more realistic? If it does, then we could change another thing, right? But we only want to change 1 thing at a time so we can actually compare our data. So Jordan's going to be looking at his data, right, that he already produced, where his rabbits went extinct after like 10 rounds. When he makes 1 modification, we're going to see if that actually changes the data, right? So if you're going crazy and changing all the rules, well, then we don't really know which rule helped, okay? So part 2 is going to be the hardest. You're going to make 1 modification to the game based on the principle of natural selection. How can we make this game more realistic to the process of evolution and natural selection? So 1 option here, which you can use this option, right? Because I'm not telling you how to modify the game necessarily. What if you have 2 different colored rabbits? Right? So that could be an option. You could change something about the wolves. You could change something about the board. But you're only going to change 1 thing, which I know right now, if you're not going, ooh, this is going to be hard, right? It is. So you're literally going to go back into the directions of the game, and you're going to figure out what you can alter so that natural selection or evolution is being shown here. It's going to be tough, right? You might have to change all the steps, and you know, if you add another color, for example. But regardless, right, you might even want to start with a different number of foxes and rabbits. Just think about changing 1 thing. So if you're adding a color, don't also make the rabbits give birth to more than 1 rabbit, right? If you're going to change the birth of the rabbits because you're talking about how that's really, as long as you can relate it to natural selection and evolution, which I won't do because I don't want to give it away, then that could work. Could the pieces landing outside of the board count as a modifier? Sure. So if you just randomly scramble your stuff up and whoever falls off the board dies, that could be a way to show something in evolution or natural selection, but you need to identify, Christian, what that would be. Habitat. Like I said, you could make an alteration to the board, right? Maybe the dark blue squares are actually rabbit holes and the wolves can't even land there. So if a wolf lands there, it automatically dies because it just can't, right? There's a lot of things you could do here. Be creative. Think about it. Okay, so that's going to be the first change we're going to make. You're going to run the lab again. You're going to collect data. So I would actually make a copy of this document. You're going to call it part 2. When you make an alteration to the instructions, please do it in a different color, right? So I can see clearly what you did. So if you're going to say whatever you're going to say, right, change the color to blue or something else so that you're like, here is what I'm changing, da 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 da. So it's very clear to me, oh, here's the modifications that were made by Riley. Here's the modifications that were made by Christian. I see exactly what you guys changed. Otherwise, I'm going to have to read the directions and compare them, and it's going to take forever, right? So please use a different color to show the modification that you are creating. Now, that's going to be one set. Yeah, if you can't get this printed until tomorrow, that's fine, right? We're going to be working on this for a while. In fact, I'm going to talk about, we're going to have a little interruption because of testing. So I'm going to talk about that in a second, Winter. But that's fine. If you can't print it until tomorrow or you need a little bit more time to acquire equipment or whatever, that's fine. What if we made the animals vegetarian? Could wolves be vegetarian though, Riley? You might have to research on that. Yeah, the word testing, I know, trust me. Okay, so that's the first rule that we're gonna change. So that's the second time we're gonna do the lab. The third time is a little bit easier and possibly more fun. You get to be a little more creative. For the third way, you're gonna make another modification, and it's based on anything that would make it more realistic. So this is the one that's gonna be a little easier. Rabbits have more than one baby. The wolves have limited access to food, right? The wolves don't reproduce as much. Maybe you start with a different number of wolves and rabbits. You know, kind of anything that we mentioned in that 7 things that would make the game more realistic. It could be something that you might even already think about, right, that we didn't list, and that's fine. So we're going to do this lab 3 times. The first time, following the directions as they are. The second time, making one modification to make it more realistic in terms of natural selection and evolution. And the third time, making an alternate modification to show a more realistic ecosystem. Right? Now, how is this change different to the first? That's a great question, Peyton. It might not be. The thing is, you need to be able to explain in part 2 how it relates to evolution or natural selection. So rabbits having more than one baby, how would that relate to natural selection? If it does, then you can use it for option 2. Yeah, you should work ahead. So this weekend, I'm going to be doing some publishing stuff, hopefully all the way through the end of this unit, right? Because I'm writing the course, so I am like writing it right now as we're going, which is why not everything is published. So what she means, Riley, is can she start doing part 2 and 3 right now? Yes. And you should, and play with it, right? Try it, right? This is an experimental thing. See, okay, I think I'm going to change this. And if it doesn't work, fine, pick something else, right? Or maybe it does work, but it gives you really weird data and you're like, huh, that's fine. This is going to be an exploration process. So I'm here to help you, right? Like I said, this is going to be challenging because this is going to involve science thinking. This is going to involve modeling and data, right? And this is going to involve applying that modeling to science. A lot of stuff going on. So really think, Peyton asked a great question. What's the difference between the two changes? Well, one of them, you have to be able to explain how it's impacting evolution or natural selection. The other one just has to be to make it more realistic, so it's more vague and open. Okay. Jordan is very confused about these the questions for the virtual session, so we'll look at those in a second. So we're going to compare the data from each part of this lab. There will be a little reflection that you're going to do at the end, which I'm going to publish this weekend. You're not going to be turning these 3 variations in until March 23rd. So today's the 9th. That gives you 2 weeks to do this lab 3 times, right? In fact, if you're super on it, you could probably do variation 2 and 3 today and be done. And then just have to do a little reflection. The reflection is going to be, what do you notice about your data? Did it actually become more accurate to real life? Blah, 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 blah. Would there be other things you would want to change? Was there anything you would want to keep? Kind of questions, right? So it's going to be just reflecting on the data and what you see. So what are you going to turn in on March 23rd? You're going to turn in your original lab, so I can see your original data again. You're going to turn in part 2, where you make a change that supports evolution. Then you're going to turn in part 3, where you make a change that supports more realistic ecosystem. And then you're going to have a little reflection analysis paragraph. Okay, so this is not due for a long time. Now here's the other thing. I was planning on March 23rd that we would have a virtual session where we then discussed the data and did the conclusion thing together. We are not going to have a virtual session on March 23rd. It is the day before spring break, so I know half of you guys would peace out anyways. And we're actually going to be doing a testing preparation thing, which I know doesn't apply to all of you, right? It's going to be for 11th graders. But because I have to do that for 2 hours instead of virtual sessions, we're not going to have a virtual session. Okay, we're also not going to have a virtual session next week. I know, it's really sad. I'm sad. I like bio virtual sessions a lot. Why? What is next Friday? It's not spring break, because we just established spring break is going to be March 23rd. So what's next Friday? My Avid people should know this. Progress reports. So we have no school next Friday. Teachers will be grading all day. You will then get a progress report. So you should be checking your grades, right? Are you going to be happy with your progress report grade? If not, you have a week right now to fix it. Okay, so next Friday we don't have school. That's the 16th. Yeah. Oh, and it's someone's sweet 16th. That's cool. That's awesome, Yana. And then the 23rd, because of a testing thing, we're not going to have a virtual session either. So what that means is if you have questions about this lab, you need to ask me. Send me an email, right? Send me a text. Say, hey, I changed this. I'm not sure if it's good, right? I guarantee that what you're doing is going to be awesome. So be confident in it. This is your model. You're changing it. Oh, I thank you, Bella. I'm glad you like the new format. Okay, so then the other thing is testing is coming up, right? It's going to be basically the entire month of April for me. If you're 11th grade, you're going to have to come take your tests, right, during your week. If you're a 9th or 10th grader, we're going to continue having school as usual. Now, because I'm not a mean, cruel person, I'm not going to have a ton of stuff due during testing time. Because, you know, it's not going to be fair to the 11th graders who are in our class. And also, I'm not going to be as available to help. Okay, so we're going to be starting a project once we finish evolution, which by spring break, we're going to be done with evolution. We're going to be starting a project where you guys are actually going to go out into the world and find examples of the 6 kingdoms of life. And I'm pretty excited about it. I'm going to give you that project. It's also going to be published soon. Oh yeah, I'm making you leave your house, Destiny. You don't have to go far, probably. But you're going to take selfies with plants and animals and fungi and bacteria and protists. Or you're going to put your fingers in the picture so I know it's you. Oh yeah, it's going to be cool. It's going to be a little nature exploration. It's going to be fun. And look, there you go. Woods are behind your house, so you really don't even have to leave your house, right? Yeah, so it's going to be really fun. Okay, Riley, thank you. We're almost done. We're about to end. So that project is going to be coming up. We're going to learn about feedback mechanisms, and we're going to learn about the 6 kingdoms of life. And then our final unit is actually going to be a research paper that if you are in English, which I think most of you are, I forgot exactly which grades Miss Dahl is going to have it count for, but she's going to have this paper count in English and in science. So you're going to work on one paper and you're going to get grades in both classes. I think she's going to do it for 10th and 11th grade. I don't know about 9th grade because I think Miss Christine Calhoun teaches that one. But we can ask her if she wants to give credit for that. But regardless, you're going to get to do a research paper on some pretty cool topics. Right? And it's going to be really open-ended and fun. Oh, you're asking if you have to leave your house. Yes, you do. So basically, once we finish evolution, we're going to do a lot of projects that you can kind of do at your own pace, right? I'm going to have some checkpoints of things to turn in, but a lot of it's going to be, you know, long-term stuff that you could either do really quickly or you could spend a lot of time on. Okay. So no virtual session next Friday because there's no school. No virtual session on March 23rd. Reach out if you have questions, right? If you need help on something specifically, let me know. We will finish evolution by then, and then when we come back, we're going to do, actually, we might not finish evolution. It might go into April a little bit, now that I think about it, because we still have a lot. She's sad because she likes the virtual sessions, Riley. Duh, because they're awesome. Okay, so thank you guys for coming to, oh, the other thing I wanted to tell you is we do have another lab coming up that you're going to do on your own that has equipment. So I want to tell you now so you can work on getting that. You're going to get to choose either doing a lab called Survival of the Sweetest or a lab called Beaks of Finches. They both get at the same idea. They're both modeling natural selection. The Beaks of Finches one is more fun because you get to act like a finch and use all these different beaks to scoop things up. Survival of the Sweetest is a little more chill with less supplies, but still cool. So you're going to have to do one of those labs. So right now, look at the supplies. This is on the home page of the course, by the way. Figure out, okay, I need to buy some Skittles or I need to find these things. A lot of them you probably already have in your house, right? Chopsticks, tweezers, spoon, pliers, binder clip. I linked a picture in case you don't know what that looks like. And then peas and beans. Again, you could use any kind of thing as long as they're different sizes. You need small and big things. Yeah. So keep in mind that's going to be coming up. That's going to be a self-directed lab that you do at home. You will need to figure out how to get that stuff. The Skittles will obviously be the easiest route, but the Beaks of Finches lab is pretty fun. Especially if you have younger siblings, they might want to participate with you, acting as a little finch. Okay, so, well, Riley, you could get them, right? All right. Otherwise, do you guys have any questions? Jordan, do you want me to open the virtual session thing so we can look at those questions really quick? Let's see. Okay. Oh yeah, I don't know why I called this lesson 4 a virtual session 4. It's kind of repetitive. Oops, I went to the wrong one. Well, here's the slides in case you need to look at them. That's also where I'm going to post the video. Okay, so all you're doing is responding to basically what we talked about. So you're brainstorming during this virtual session reflection here. What rule are you thinking about modifying to model natural selection? Which rule are you thinking about modifying to make the game more realistic? And explain. This is your time to tell me what you think you're going to do, and if it sounds like a bad idea, I will let you know. Okay? You're also going to describe the purpose of a model and if a model can ever be perfect, which we know the answer is no, right? It can't. So explain a little bit about why. I'll add a why in there for those of you who think one sentence would suffice for that. So there we go. So that's what you're going to turn in from today's session. Okay. Is there a code word or phrase? No. Because everybody's going to have to do this, right? And I'm going to get, people are going to have to watch the recording to figure out what's going on for parts 2 and 3. But we're not going to have a code word phrase today. Actually, maybe I'll just let you guys have bonus points with a code word that you could use on any assignment. We'll do that. So our code word is going to be this. And you can use that code word on any assignment to get 5 bonus points. So it could be a test, quiz, assignment. Yeah, from now on. You could go back to if you find something that you did really bad on and you want me to add points to that. But you're probably going to have to email me and say, hey, I want to use my code word points on blah, 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 and then I can add it in for you. Okay, so write that down. You could save it. I know people last semester saved some of these bonus points and used them all on the final exam. So you could always save it, right? No pressure to use it right away. You can only use it once. Yeah, I had some people who literally saved 4 code words and were like, can you add 20 points to my final? So definitely possible. Okay. Any other questions? Okay, you guys check out my cool wolf shirt. It's actually a dress, a wolf dress. Pretty exciting, science themed. Oh yeah, I love wolf shirts. See, I wore it because we're talking about wolves and rabbits. Like, I really thought about this. The outfit is coordinated. It's really good. I got it at Camp 18. You have wolf pictures all over your house? Yeah. You should share this lab with her. I'm sure she'd be excited about it. Okay, so I will see you guys in a while, right? Be in touch if you're confused, stuck, you need help. And we will resume our virtual sessions in April. I will be in touch about when exactly we will resume because I don't want to give you guys too many dates. Otherwise, have a good rest of your day.